library, instead of picking up books in a library, we pick up people to have a conversation with. So in this living library, and I think we met a year ago, or even less than that, through LinkedIn. Um, and we met in London in person, in a park, finding each other in some park that I don't remember
Yeah.
its name. And and we talked the other day about authenticity, because I saw your Substack uh, post on it, and you've been posting, and I've been on Substack, and you've been on Substack, and I reached out. Maybe we'll speak about Substack as well later on, and we started to have about this authenticity. So, before we dive into um, to all of the things, like, maybe you can share more about yourself and what is authenticity for you.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to be with you today, Yuri. And yeah, you're right. We kind of connected. We very much connected on LinkedIn, and we met up, and we, were talking about stories and metaphors and kind of change and transformation. So, it's good to kind of share the conversation with you today. And in answer to your question, really, the work that I do is very deep. It's a deep exploration into people's own insights and wisdom. And that's changed over the years. I used to do like kind of breakthrough coaching, helping people with life and leadership, change and shift their life. And now what I started to realize myself is I started to realize that I spent a lot of my life looking externally for happiness, love, wisdom, and even things like joy and happiness. I was always searching, so I was very externally referenced. I did understand the inner world, and I've done a lot of work, deeper work on myself, but I always felt like something was missing. And recently, in the last few years, I went for a big shift myself, and I started to realize that I am the love, happiness, and wisdom that I seek. And so my work has changed. It's not so much around breakthroughs and helping people solve specific problems. It's more about helping people connect with their own innate well-being and then create success and create the kind of life they want to live from that place. So it's more about not being externally referenced, it's internally referenced, showing up to life from that place. And that kind of leads me into the authenticity piece because, there's always a trade-off between living our life authentically that's true to us and living in attached to other people's opinions and definition of our lives. So you have this it's almost like our intuition, our true self wants to live authentically, but then there's a trade-off between this attachment, which is for love and for appreciation and acknowledgement from the external world, which is an illusion, but it's that's the journey coming back to our true self and then creating and living life from there. So I found over the years authenticity means a number of things. It's probably etymologically there's a very defined version of it, but everyone has their own version of it. So I think for me it's like authenticity. I read once is about being authentic about where we're being inauthentic, and that means just taking an honest look of how we're showing up to life and in conversations, and it's having the courage to say and do what occurs to you and to say like I've given you an example, like if I'm doing a coaching session with somebody and deep within me it says, hey, you might want to point out this thing or you might want to say this thing to them because that's in their best interest, but my mind says, oh no, but they won't love you, they won't appreciate you, they won't accept you, and then I don't say that thing, that's living inauthentically. But if I have the courage to say and point that thing out to that client, then that's living authentically. That's doing what's in their best interest, not necessarily what my social self wants me to do. So that's always I wouldn't say battle, but that's the journey to living life more authentically.
Mm. Yeah, I like this reference to this story. Like well, I interpret it as the story. Like there's the story of who I am,
Yeah,
that is my own story, that I'm keep telling myself who I am. It's always changing, but it's a very important story. And then the story of what people think about me, or how people
Mm.
see me, and how to balance it somehow. And yeah, and it has so many layers, right? Like I just the other day, I've spent researching with different AI agents. So now we have so many options, right? We have ChatGPT, this Chinese stuff, so I was figuring out the Claude, and I was my inquiry started with what do they know about me? I put my name Uri and Adrian, so I wanted to see like what the AI knows about me, and
Yeah,
uh, and it's interesting. So not every AI knew the same things, I had a whole conversation, and the most philosophical, interesting one was Claude that I recommend for this kind of conversation. Um, yeah, there is some because my father was a more known figure in academic world, so somehow the AI knew more about them. But because I do experiential work and I'm still kind of a young practitioner, he knew very little, so he invented stuff. So there was a lot more kind of hallucination. And he didn't know that my father was my father. So it was interesting how he also identified how the bias of
wow,
that is in their in own training. Um, and I'm sharing this because I feel like so much in the world of technology and social media and this, it's so highlighting this story of what other people think of me becomes so big, right? Like,
yeah,
and how difficult it is to keep that story of me that I'm the storytelling somehow,
yeah,
and so much maybe I don't know despair or emotional anxiety can come from living in a
of
world where
course.
all this is happening.
Of course, because you have all these arbitrary benchmarks which we don't really know how to fulfill. So you have all these arbitrary comparisons, or these arbitrary things people are doing, and you don't really see the depth of what they're really going through. So, and as you say, if you're not careful, it kind of pulls you into like, well, they're doing that. Well, maybe I should try and do that. But often we don't know whether that's something we want to do, or whether it even works. So then we live life inauthentically. And it's not good or bad, I would say, but it's so easy to pull us in because it's just part of our human nature. It's part of our human instinct to kind of do that. And how I see it is that we have this outer world of energy, and that's constantly telling us who we are. And and you might see that as love and wisdom in the external world, and it's telling us who we are. They've got this outer world of energy, and we're and I've been on that journey searching in the external world to find love and wisdom in people, places, and objects, and then not realizing that I was the love and wisdom that I was searching for. So the journey becomes a reconciliation process of coming back home to yourself, and to recognize that I am the love and wisdom that I seek, and then showing up to the world from that place. So then, therefore, I'm not dependent on the world to give me love and wisdom, the outer world of energy. I'm listening to the inner world of energy, who knows who I am, rather than the outer world of energy trying to tell me who I am. So I think there's a big difference. But what I found, Yuri, over the years, people aren't quiet enough to hear that. They feel a certain sensation or a feeling, and then they get distracted. But if we can be quiet enough to really hear that, it's constantly speaking to us. There's an aliveness in the body, an intuition that's always speaking to us. It's when we undermine that is when conflict happens. When somebody says, hey, do you want to go to here, or do you want to do this, and you say yes but you don't want to do it, and the intuition says no but you do it anyway. You go to the party, or you go and do that business project, but you never really wanted to do it. So it's listening to that inner self, and don't always get it right, but it's acting in accordance with what occurs to you to do from that a deeper sense. But as I said, I think in society we're never quiet enough to really to hear that, because we're either washing down a coffee, putting on music, oh, I'm busy, I've got to go and see my friend, and oh my God, I'm stressed, I've got to build my business. All of these things are going on which pull us away from that center. But I think as a practice, coming back to center and quietening, that authentic voice speaks, and then we have to have the courage to do and say what it wants us to do and say. And that's living authentically, which, if you look at the spectrum of consciousness, one of the highest things people put up there is love. But authenticity is higher than love on that consciousness spectrum. And I don't know whether that's true or not true, but it seems to me love and authenticity are very, very high. So once we can get that and create that for ourselves, it's a very powerful way to live life.
Yeah, I like it. Um, yeah, I feel like the pausing, like that's definitely a thing also for me, I am an embodied practitioner, and I
Yeah.
do social pressing theater. Like the symbol on the book of my teacher is ma, which is the empty space in Japanese. It's the
Wow.
negative
Yeah.
space. That's the concept.
I
And
love
I've
that.
done and I've done a lot, and I'm doing a lot, but then I also catch myself sometimes, like not taking those breaks,
Yes.
and how like it's, and everything goes to crap when you don't do it,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, and the power of just, okay, I'm just not doing anything right now. I'm just being, I'm just breathing, and how things can really almost naturally resolve themselves. I just this,
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. That's a really good insight. Yeah, I love that things naturally resolve themselves.
yeah. And then, when you do that, I feel when I'm able to do it, then the world somehow comes up with the solutions that I never expected to the
Yeah.
question that I was having,
Yeah.
Um, just this morning, I was just getting into my car with my daughter to take her to school, and a neighbor that I never talk with. I seen her all the time with the dog and kind of in the courtyard, but she kind of knocked on the door and asked me like, do I do theater? And she had a proposal for this organization that she's working for, like doing theater for them. It's like we never talk. I don't know how she knows I'm doing theater.
Wow.
It's like it's like but here she was. Um, so yeah, so the universe is a fantastic place, and intelligent. That's, I
Mm.
guess, the thing. And I
There's an
wanted to ask.
aliveness.
Yes, yes, there is an aliveness, and there is and we're co-creating it. Our
Yeah.
intention, our words are part of that. And we are creating it in action, and we're creating it in reflection, in
Mm.
action.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about Substack, because how you came to start writing there, and how do you finding it. I do find it like a new kind of experience in digital spaces. Like there is
Yeah.
more level of authenticity, I feel, overall.
Yes.
It has its own things, but something, yeah, I wonder what has been the experience with that.
Yeah. And just to your final point, I think there's from hearing you speak, there's an authentic way to show up to life and to live, right? And that's definitely connected to energy. And how that occurs to me is, and for the conversations I've had and clients I've worked with, is we're never in the experience of our circumstances. We're only ever in the experience of our thinking. So we're only ever experiencing thought in the moment or thinking about whatever it is in the moment. We're never experiencing our circumstances because we can change our perception of how we relate to something like that. And how it's occurred to me is that when I'm in the busy mind or a noisy mind or a muddied mind, then my energy, because you spoke about that, the opportunity that was created and the lady didn't even know that you're into theatre, we can close that off very quickly by starting to believe our own thoughts. And then there's this feeling like an unfulfilled feeling or an anxious feeling. And then this energy constricts like a jellyfish, like constricts down, like that goes down. But then there's also another energy that's there in our same being. And that's more of a quiet, expansive energy. Um, and that's more expansive. So we have these two, modes, if you will, built into our innate human. navigating system, however you would say it. So the jellyfish goes up, expands, and then it contracts. And then sometimes our jellyfish is so expanded and just floats, and then something happens and constricts it. And all over the years, I thought I had to do something about that. But as you say, there's like a natural inbuilt type thing that just brings you back to clarity. The only thing that I found that really helps me become aware of that is just noticing, oh, okay, where am I? Where am I? Am I in expansion or constriction? And I know that, okay, I'm stuck in my thinking about something. And I don't necessarily need to do anything. I just need to wait for the jellyfish to kind of start expanding again. And that's the kind of ebb and flow of that inner experience. I can't get rid of it. I can't remove it, but I can learn to kind of surf, if that makes sense. So that's been my experience, and to add to your point, and I think I got into Substack, Yuri, because self-expression is important to me, and I'm neurodiverse, so I see things, I see images and visuals, and I can see missing pieces. But I find it sometimes when I'm certainly communicating through writing, communicating this way comes naturally to me. Communicating to writing is more challenging because it reminds me being back in school as a dyslexic, having to write lines, and the kind of the hardship of doing that when you misspell words and you can't, and you're not spelling right, but it's obviously just my spatial awareness and the way that my mind works is not designed necessarily for writing. So when I came to Substack, I was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure this is going to work for me. And now what I do is I don't write, I speak into, and it writes for me. So I tell stories and I speak in metaphors. And my wife actually helps translate what I'm saying. So I walk around the room speaking and she writes it all down. And then those posts go directly onto Substack. So in effect, I am writing, but the writing is from my speaking. So it helps me leverage my strength rather than sitting there feeling like I have to type it out. So that's how I've learned how to write, but it's me actually speaking the words. And I think on Substack, what I've noticed to your point, Yuri, is that those people that love I want to hear your human stories. I want to hear that creativity. And there is very much like yourself, like real creative people on there. And then there's the other group of people that are talking about, hey, improve your Substack writing and get more followers. So there's two kind of sides to Substack. And here's how it occurs to me is I just went onto Substack to write, to write deep and inspiring and powerful stories and questions and for myself initially, and for providing value to others so other people could get inspired or to challenge their thinking around deeper coaching, living more authentically, and creating the kind of life that you want to live. And so my initial intention was to go on there for myself, and the secondary intention is to write for other people, and so they can see that value. And I'm doing, a post a week now, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it. But I can see how the platform can scale into stuff that you're doing, like building more followers, building a community, perhaps doing audios and videos, and then perhaps building like offerings off the back of that. But right now, where I'm at with it is to write from the depth of my own wisdom.
Yeah, I like how you're approaching it, and what I feel, and I feel that there is a vision within Substack which I can connect with, is this, and I think they're even declaring it as an alternative to publishing in a way.
Wow.
So and it is a new paradigm for creators in a way to think in this way, right? That and I don't think that anything can replace books, for example. Books are important, like I don't know, I never wrote a book, but and I used to read a lot of books when I grew
I
up,
think
and
there's a
now I'm
book
not
within
reading
you.
a book. But
There's
there is a
definitely a
book.
book within you. There's definitely a
Yeah,
book within you.
yeah. I know. And I have many drafts of that book. I know what this book, and I guess
You're a very visual you love the visuals, the metaphors, and that kind of kinesthetic, that that experiential thing. So I could probably see that have that type of stuff in your book, not just text, but
Yes,
pictures,
yeah,
metaphors, exercises, like
and
embodied
that's
type practices, and
and what's what I'm fascinating with this idea of a living library because of that, because and what you just shared as a method for writing as I'm speaking and almost as a dialogue, like we had a dream. I do dragon dreaming, and we were dreaming, and in that dreaming came up this image of books that write themselves, and
wow,
as we're walking, they're writing themselves, and it seems like with AI we're getting closer to that possibility on a
yeah,
technical aspect. Um, Although again, I feel like sometimes we attach things to the AI, which is not it's not a thing.
yeah,
It's a tool, and the question is how we're going to. I think ultimately the question is how we're going to use it to improve people's life and the planet's
mhm,
future. That's the question, not whether it's faster or has more megabyte or gigabytes or kilobytes or whatever it has, but like how is it improving people's life and the future
yeah,
of all life and yeah, and yeah, I don't know if I'm neurodiverse or not, but I know that it's hard for me sometimes to stay in one place, and that's why I made it my profession to stay in one place, or to learn how to stay in the break, and listen to the authentic voice, which is the earth. I feel as well, like it's like
yeah.
everything speaks to you in that tiny moment. Um,
Goes back to your
like
point earlier. There's an aliveness in the world, and there's an aliveness within us. So I think that that's also reflecting on that. That's living authentically. Is there's a life force and aliveness with us, and there's a life force in the planet. And if we can match the flow of that, I think it's a good place to be. You know, I was contemplating the other day in coaching with someone, and to your point earlier about that no thingness, um, and then within the nothing, the no thingness, there is also an aliveness, an aliveness of our own body, an aliveness of the planet, and it's almost like emptiness dancing. It's very much like that, and I think there's great challenge, I think, with people thinking, "Oh my God, there's a no thingness within me, like an energy that's like no empty and also dancing," and it's like it's a great place to get to. And I'm pretty sure when you're doing your theatre or you're doing there's parts where you're not there, and there's just a complete like spaciousness within you, and that's a very powerful place to be, to create from. So it's very much about where I think also where are we coming from with AI? I mean, I don't know too much about it, but if it's from insecurity or fear and we're creating it from there, it's only going to fizzle out, or challenges are going to come up in the future. But if it's coming from love, wisdom, where are we coming from with it? That's how you use it. If it's coming from insecurity, then that's not particularly great. But if it's coming from love, wisdom, and well-being and joy, then um, there's more of a potential for it to create from that place rather than insecurity.
yeah, no, I feel it. I feel it. I feel your yeah, and the and I think our question now is like how it plays out in our lives, and how can people bring authenticity in their
Mm.
life, and as you were sharing that, so I have a moment. I was a soldier in Gaza 20 years ago in the Israeli Defense Force, and that has been an experience that changed my life in many ways,
Yeah,
defined my life. And I want to start by I'm very saddened by the devastation that is happening, and the loss of life and the loss of spirit
yeah.
that is in this useless, stupid war, which nobody wins in. Um, so 20
Chaos and
years ago,
destruction.
chaos and destruction, just that,
Mm.
and Yeah, and dehumanization of everyone involved.
Yeah.
But I have a story which is kind of out of bounds. So I was in a tunnel. So my military role was I was a tunnel rat. I would go into tunnels. That was my role. And at the time, 20 years ago, there were like really holes in the ground, like it's like literally, some places you couldn't turn around. There was like little spaces where you can turn around, scrolling there, and the role was to put explosive to destroy those tunnels. And there was this tunnel, and I had the flashlight, and I just felt to close the flashlight, and I laid on the ground, and there was just a pause and this complete darkness. They can only get underground, and I just felt to be inside the earth,
Wow.
and I felt love,
Wow.
just love and peace coming, just flowing into me in this darkness. And I don't know how long it was this moment, because then my commander said, like, hey, what are you doing? And
You're
but it
like,
was a,
oh.
but there was something there that endless love that the earth has for me, for us, for all of us,
Yeah.
and peace in this crazy, crazy place, which I carry with me as a kind of some hope.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
It's like the love within, it's like there's a recognition of your own love connected to like a greater love. It's like the kind of, sounds like a kind of a unifying of you and the love within you and the love within the earth, which
And the
is
love of nothingness, there was
yeah,
nothing, and in the nothing there was just so much.
I know,
uh,
yeah. It's
um,
it's 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 interesting, isn't it? I think I was reflecting on this point, that nothingness is, everyone is so afraid of nothing, to be nothing, to accomplish nothing, or to, there's the word nothing doesn't sound good in society, but then to transcend that kind of the fearful, insecure mind, and then connect with your true self, authentic self, the deeper mind, um, and then connect with that unconditional love. That's, you're transcending the thinking mind, and that's available to so many people. And when we can connect with that, we can live more authentically, true to ourselves, because we're connected with that love and wisdom within. And it doesn't mean being a pushover, and not standing up for ourselves, but it allows us to be more courageous. It allows us to say and do what occurs to us to say and do. And I think it's a wonderful story. In the darkness, many people are afraid of nothing in the darkness, but there's a space within us. There's a space within that is dark, that's spacious, that is nothing, no thingness. And when we're back at that place, we are connected back to our authentic self. And it's like I said earlier, it's like emptiness dancing, and there's no thought, just a profound connection. And and as I reflect on society, and that's what we're all looking for, a deeper connection to ourselves. And it sounds like you found that. It sounds like you found the, or an essence of that, until you got, you know, shouted at by your commander. But there was a fleeting moment there, which is powerful, because you know that it exists. And imagine if everyone could have that experience in life. They probably already had that experience, but just thought it as nothing, and then went back to have their, triple espresso and their pint of beer, and off they go to get distracted. Um, so it's a powerful realization, and we're seeing that now. The waking up, everyone's looking, waking up, and there is an awakening happening.
yeah. No, I feel we have this potential. We always had this potential.
Mm.
We build whole cultures around this potential.
Yeah,
Then something happened, and we started to build something else.
of
And
course.
this thing is not leading us to anywhere. I don't want to say anywhere good, but anywhere that we really need, and that's
Yeah,
part of the authenticity. because that's my teacher Hector also says often, you can never get enough on what you don't really need. uh, and we're keep eating the stuff that we don't really need, and consuming and consuming. But if it's not what we need, then it's endless, right? So it's how do we start, nourishing what we really need? And for me, it's care. In the end of it, it's care. It's love. It's authenticity. It's unconditional love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And doing what's in our best interests rather than always the interest, trading that off with the interests of others. What's a great question to ask is what's in your best interests rather than how you feel about something. How do you feel about something or whatever that is? And then what's in your best interests? And what you find is when you separate the two, how you feel about something and what's in your best interests are completely different. And when we live life with what's in our best interests, then we're moving closer to living more authentically to us. And then what starts to happen is relationships and people and places, things that weren't authentic, start to naturally fall away. And then we start to rebuild our life and create more authentic connections and a sense of belonging from that place, from being authentic. So it's it's been a good contemplation today. It's been a good conversation.
Yeah. Thank you, Adrian. I'm taking a lot, and and this is the third of 3 interviews I've done this week, and I'll take some time to process it and then kind of release it. But yeah, I feel just blessed to have a conversation, to be authentic and share, and I feel that's part of what we're here for. But everyone, to have those deep conversation and open up spaces in that way. And thank you for doing that conversation. Of course, I'll share below like the information for the Substack and other things, and let's see what comes next, and let the silence and the pauses guide us.
Yeah, that's one of the most profound things. This being in silence and just noticing your own energy that's flowing within. And then when we engage within the external world is, what's in our best interests, and it's a good barometer to create the kind of life that we want to live, but also the two energies as well, the expansion and the contraction, and also having the courage to say what occurs to you to say and do what occurs to you to do, knowing that well-being, love, wisdom, and joy are not in the external world, that you are the provider of your own, which ties nicely back to connecting with the earth and you feeling that love. Yes, you felt the love from the earth, but it was also your own love. So it's a powerful place to be. It's been I hope people get some value off the other interviews you're doing, but it's great to be with you today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and maybe that's something else and I went back to that place when I went to a big, like a tunnel in Greece, in Paros Island, and what I noticed there was that light from within. So in the complete darkness, I could notice my own light coming out. So there was, so
beautiful.
So it's really about kind of finding your own light in the darkness and the shadow, and letting that guide you somehow, I guess.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks, Uri.
To be continued.
To be continued. Great to be with you today.
Regeneration is our collective responsibility.
Regeneration.
Regeneration.
Universal
Regeneration.
Right.
Imagination.
Human nature.